What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the Berry Blessed podcast. My name is Derek.
My name is Kayla,
And we are the Berries. So excited about this one. We're going to talk about distractions today. And this is a topic that the wife had came up with. So we are going to dive right into it because we have a lot to get to about distractions. So you might see us looking off to the right or the left a little bit just because we have a presentation prepared that we are going to present from. So don't want you thinking that we are getting distracted. We're actually just presenting off of our slideshow.
Right.
So let's start with the definition of distractions. Sweetheart, do you want to read that one off?
So a thing that prevents someone from giving full attention to something else.
Yeah. What's your number one distraction?
Work.
That was
Hands
quick.
down. What about for you?
Definitely not work. I think probably my number one distraction is I tend to get wrapped up into miscellaneous things. I have a hard time with multitasking. I'm one of those people that I need to be better about staying focused on one task instead of trying to do multiple things, because what ends up happening is I'll work on something and then squirrel and start working on something else. And then I have a hard time then getting back on track with the original thing that I was working on.
Yeah. No, I multitask a lot, but work is my biggest distraction for 100% sure.
4 types of distractions. Most 4 common types of distractions are visual, manual, cognitive, and auditory. So we're going to go over each of those individually and kind of give some examples of that. We'll start with visual.
So visual is something that gets your attention with your eyes and distracts you. So biggest thing that comes to mind is if you're driving, you see obnoxious colored car or a billboard or something that might be in the street, like, a puppy, something like that will distract you, like visually, take your focus off of something that you are supposed to be focused on and taking your eyes off that focused.
I feel personally attacked there. If you would know this bit of an inside joke a little bit. I recently purchased a vehicle that I did not like the color of, so I had it painted. And my 2 favorite colors are orange and blue.
Guess which one he picked.
I decided to go with orange, and it's a very loud orange, I guess we can say. We'll see what happens at the time of editing. If at the time of editing I can find a picture, I'll put it up so you can see. But yeah, it's
I
bright.
wasn't targeting or trying to.
So I feel attacked because the wife doesn't really like it. So
No, it's a little too aggressive for me.
but visual distractions, just like you were saying, it can be something like driving, right? So if you're driving and you see something, or the bigger thing is if you're driving and you get a text message, right? And most of us can't go very long without responding to our messages, and you decide to put your focus on the phone instead of on the road. It's dangerous,
Right.
So the visual wise can be dangerous. How about manual?
Manual is any action that takes your focus on the activity.
Yeah, so an actual something physical. So I feel like an example of that would be, if we're using the workplace, for example, if I'm working on something, let's say I'm working on a spreadsheet at work, but then somebody comes into the office that I'm working in and says, "Hey, Derek, can we get you on the floor? Because we really need your help." That's a distraction there. That's physically pulling me away from what I'm trying to accomplish.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody's just pulling you. Yeah, workplace is a big common one for that one.
Cognitive.
So this one is mental aspect of distraction.
Yeah, anything that mentally. I think this one is probably for most people the most common form of distraction. And I say this because I know that we use the text message one, and that's a very common one, but I feel like cognitive is probably the most common because the reality of it is we can't control our own thoughts.
Yeah, or daydreaming is a big
Yeah.
one too. It's a common one if you're daydreaming, is a distraction for like your mental.
It's very easy to be mentally distracted,
Hmm.
and it has everything to do with just life that's happening around us. So,
Right.
something that you notice coming into work can live in your mind. I keep saying work. This can happen anywhere,
Yeah.
but I feel like work is kind of just a spot where we all are distracted. But it could be something where you're walking into a place, or you're coming home even, and something from the day has been just lingering in your mind,
Right.
and it can just distract you, and you
Yeah.
start to drift off into almost like a daydream, or into a daze that then takes your attention away.
Yeah. You can be distracted in the grocery store. I always am if I'm hungry and get sidetracked. That's a good distraction, like example. So,
Yeah. Auditory.
so sounds that pull your attention away. So, kids, if they're being loud and you're trying to focus, maybe like having to take work home, trying to feed the kids and all that stuff. You can be, sound is a big one if you have kids, people around you too. When you're trying to be focused on something, somebody could put their input into something, and that could be a distraction because their input might not be good input.
Music, I think, is a big one too. I know that a lot of people can center based off of music, but I think that music can actually be distracting as well, especially if it's something that, you know, you're working on something, or you're in some type of a mood, and then all of a sudden a song comes on that reminds you of something.
I,
That all of a sudden takes your attention off of what you were thinking about, and then shifts your attention to what that song or that sound reminds you of.
I say yes and no. I'm kind of in the middle of that one because music really helps me focus on not, I mean, not everything I can, but like, especially at work, I can't do work related stuff at my desk without having music in the background. And it doesn't have to have like an actual song that has lyrics to it. It can just be a melody, like just, a melody of anything. And that I just like something in the background so it's not dead silent.
But I
Um,
guess here's where my pushback is, because if you're just playing, like top 100 or something like that, sure, it's familiar territory. But what happens if you're at work, you're working, and you're like, oh, I just need some background music, and all of a sudden a XSplit song comes on that has a lot of cussing in it, and a
oh, I
lot
see.
of
I,
things
I
of that
don't.
nature, that's going to distract you.
Yeah, but I don't put that music on. I put
Understood.
jazz music. But I
Understood.
understand
But
in
if,
that
if something
aspect,
else was to
yes.
come on, it's going to distract you.
Yeah.
So I think
So,
that's where
yeah.
I'm at with. That's just the point that I'm making on
Yeah.
that,
No,
is that
that
it can
makes
be.
understand. If you're not having your playlist kind of narrowed down to something that's undistracted. Like me, I play jazz music and it's just, a sax or something in the background where it doesn't have lyrics. That's not going to distract me in regards to that. But yes, if you're going to have like something that brings you back to your, childhood days, and then it comes on, and especially if it's catchy, you're going to sit here and start dancing or start
Yeah.
singing. So,
If
yeah.
Lil Jon Get Low comes on to your playlist all of a
No,
sudden for
that's a
some
horrible
odd
example.
reason,
That's not a good
I don't
example.
think that you're going to be able to
That's
to
not a good
focus on
example.
property management.
That's not good. That's not a good example for me. Could bring back an 80s or 90s song, then that's a distraction. But
All right. So what leads to distractions?
external, such as a noise, or internal, such as fatigue, which is caused by the loss of interest or how intense the distraction is.
Yeah. So loss of interest, I think that's a big one. When you're not interested in something, when you're not invested in something, it's extremely easy then to become distracted.
Yeah. Like even at home chores. So
Yeah.
everybody has that one chore that they cannot stand to do. And you get easily distracted with either a TV show or a song or kids. Any, normal household chore can get you distracted, or you just don't want to do it.
Yeah.
You're just not in the mood to do it. That will definitely distract you.
The other part is just, how aggressive or how strong is that distraction. So sometimes, like kids is a
Mm-hmm.
good example of that. If you're, doing something or you're watching something, I know this happens to me all the time. If I'm watching something and
Mm-hmm.
then my daughter comes downstairs and wants to have a conversation, and it's, a show or, some type of, like Bible study or something that I'm like really into and I'm trying to focus on, and she starts talking,
Yeah.
there's just no way then for me to stay laser focused, because, I need to give my attention to her.
Right.
So it's not always a bad thing. Distractions aren't always bad,
No.
but for the most part, especially if it's something you're trying to get done, you're trying to get something accomplished, that's where it becomes negative,
Mm-hmm.
because, well, obviously then you're not getting that thing accomplished. You're not getting that thing done.
Right. Exactly.
All right, so how we overcome distractions, and we'll kind of just go back and forth on these because I want to spend a little bit of time on each. And these are kind of practical ones that we came up with, and then we'll talk about biblical ones afterwards. The first one is having intentional focus. This means that it's like, hey, I've got this one thing that I want to get accomplished. So intentionally, I'm going to focus on this and focus on this only. I am preaching to myself right now. This is exactly what I need.
Yeah. Yeah, especially like if you know you have to get something done by a deadline, with it being, going back to kids, you have to get X, Y, and Z before school starts, getting that task done, or something in the house, you need to get that task done and get it done. You have people coming into town, you gotta get the house clean, and you're like intentionally focused to get that house clean.
Yeah. It's all about prioritizing.
Yeah.
Prioritize that thing that is most important, that needs to get done first,
Right.
follow through with that, then move on to the next thing. Number two here is limiting outside input. So what is keeping you from getting that thing done?
Right.
So do you have to shut your office door when you're at work, or, if you're at home trying to get a task done, do you have to shut yourself into a room, or do you have to tell the kids, hey, look, I'm trying to get this done. You need to give dad or mom, 15, 20 minutes to get this task done.
Right.
What are you doing to limit those outside distractions?
Yeah. And not only those, but like if you're trying to basically um, be focused on something and somebody else is getting their input on that task that you need to get done, sometimes that outside noise is not good, or somebody's input is not, it's not necessary, needed, or it's just not good input.
Yeah.
Especially like, for instance, like, you're focused on getting your finances squared away because you're paying for X, Y, and Z. And then your girlfriend calls out, like, did you see the new bag that just came out? Like, you have to get it. We have to get it together and blah, blah, blah. People can distract you, like, hey, you need to get this. This is the new thing. Like,
Yeah.
we can be matching and all that stuff, but you're trying to be focused on financially getting yourself out either credit card debt or whatever, just kind of focusing on managing your money more. But you have somebody that is close to you, a friend, family member, like, we have to go. We have to go. We gotta go do this. We gotta go do that. This new restaurant just opened. We gotta go. But you have food in your house. You can just cook at home.
Yeah. That takes discipline.
Yes.
Yeah. Prioritizing and having that discipline as well.
Right.
Absolutely. No, definitely agree. Last one that we have here for overcoming distractions practically is going to be redirecting yourself. And I think this might be the most important one of the three, because you're going to get distracted. It's just not possible to not be distracted at all in life. That it's going to happen.
Right.
There's going to be areas and there's going to be times where you get distracted, but do you have the enough self-awareness to say, okay, I'm drifting. I feel myself coming away from this project. I know I need to get this done. Refocus.
Right.
So redirecting yourself back on task. Have enough self-awareness to be able to do that.
Yeah, take accountability too. It's like, okay, I know, and just like redirecting yourself as well.
That's good. That word accountability is good too, because if you did get so far off your path to where you missed your deadline, stop blaming other people
Yeah.
or other things or other forces. Take accountability for it. Say,
Right.
you know what? Yeah, I got distracted.
Yeah,
And I'm
that's
going to do better this next time because I now can learn from what I just did not accomplish, and I can now accomplish it because I know what to do. I know how
exactly
to redirect myself.
right.
So
Hmm.
accountability is great. I like that. All right, some biblical examples that we have.
One is Luke 10:38 through 42, when Martha is distracted by hosting. So Martha was so focused on being a good host for Jesus and his disciples that she missed the teachings of Jesus that her sister um, and sat at his feet to hear.
Yeah. So
So that was a big, I remember that story. That was a big thing. So, like, she was so focused on, yes, hosting Jesus and the disciples, making sure, they had water, they had food, making sure they were comfortable, and missed that whole teaching. And when her sister was sitting at Jesus's feet and listening and taking in that word.
yeah, Mary was very focused on Jesus from the moment that he came in. And all she wanted to do was just listen to what he had to say versus Martha, who was the older sister,
Right,
was the caretaker.
right.
She was the one that just wanted to make sure that everybody was good. Like you said, they had food, they had water, they had all these things. And she even got upset with Mary and said, "Hey, why aren't you helping me?"
Right.
And even went to Jesus and said, "Hey, tell her to come in here and help me." And Jesus rebuked her and said, "Hey, she's done the right thing by sitting here
Yeah.
and listening to me. I won't rebuke her for that." So a big lesson that we shouldn't be distracted on things that don't matter as much as other things. Does it matter that you're a good host? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sure, you want to be a good host, but when you have someone in your home, could you imagine if you had Jesus in your home? I think a lot of people would say, yeah, I just need to make sure that he has the best clothes, the best, food, the best water, and all of these. No, no, what you need to listen to him,
Right.
right? It's prioritizing. It goes back to that.
Yeah. No, I understand with hosting. I've only hosted a few events for family, and like I'm very like stickler when it comes to certain things. So I understand in a hosting standpoint, like you want to make sure everything's good, everybody's comfortable. Are you too hot? Are you too cold? Do you have enough food, water? Everybody has their drink. You make sure they eat first before you eat. So yeah.
Okay. Next one is the parable of the sower, and this one's found in Matthew 13:19 through 22. And this parable essentially is talking about how the seed has been corrupted essentially by thorns that come up and choke the word. So it's not people are hearing the word, but they're allowing their their love for the world and their love for money, their love for wealth to kind of obsess them to where the word isn't then staying within them. They hear in one ear and it's going out the other ear
Right.
essentially. So the distraction in this case is the world around us. It's all of the money, it's all of the power, it's all of the
Fame.
fame and all of these things where our focus should be elsewhere.
Right. Yeah, 100%. Because you can't take all those things with you when you're gone. And you go into the dirt and you can't take any of your belongings with you.
So that leaves us then with the 5 biblical ways that we can overcome distractions. And let's go down those.
So the first one is focus on what is necessary. So practice spiritual growth. So meaning is being in your Bible, being in your word, opening that word, studying the Bible every day if possible. If it's every other day, that's fine too, but every day being in that Bible and listening to his word. And another thing that I have learned in my spiritual growth, even though like maybe 3 months ago I was taught or listened to a sermon on, let's say, the book of Ruth, but you go back in, you can still get something new out of something. And I had to learn that in the last about year or so. I would say maybe a year and a half. Like, oh, I already heard this book, I already know, but you go back yourself, you can learn something brand new from a book that you just listened to a sermon or a Bible study and just go back and reading it. You can find something new out of it every single time.
Yeah, there's a movie that I really really like that's actually it's really cheesy. It's kiddie. You know, it's one that I used to watch as a kid quite often. It was called The Never Ending Story 2. So the movie featured a boy who in the original film had this never-ending story, this book that he had read, and he went on this great adventure and whatnot. But the kid's a curious reader. He loves reading. And in the second movie, he goes back into that same bookstore and he's looking for a new book to read, and he picks up the never-ending story. And he's like, I've already read that one. But Mr. Coriander, the librarian, is like, hey, have you ever read a book twice? And, you know, that always stuck with me as a kid because I was like, yeah, why do I watch this movie over and over again? Or why do I read books over and over again? Well, it's because not just that they're entertaining, but there's little things that you find in those books, in those movies that you never did. If you ever go back and watch movies that you watched as a kid, as an adult, you can find little things that you missed as a kid in them.
Exactly.
The Bible's no different. You know, you
Yeah.
can go back and you can read a book over in the Bible and you can get something completely and totally different out of it, especially if you're reading it in your different translations as well, which is what a recommendation of mine is. You know, I'm very partial to the King James version, but when I read it in other versions too to cross reference, I start to understand a little bit more because, you know, sometimes, you know, obviously that language has changed a bit.
Yeah. And also, too, going back to a book from the Bible, you know, even though it might be 3 or 6 months ago that you've read that book, you're also need to look at the journey that you're going growing as in your spiritual journey, because you might be in a different season, and that season when you might have got like one thing or not got nothing at all from that sermon or Bible study, but then you go back and you get more things that you weren't expecting to get it, or it's helping you through your spiritual journey currently and helping you get out of that struggle maybe, and it's like, oh, okay, this is what I need to do. So it's also like your growth, your personal and spiritual growth. You don't know, you might need it that time, and in regards to 6 months ago, or you got something 6 months ago and you didn't need it now. So it's also part of your spiritual journey and where you're at in life too.
Absolutely. Second one we have on here is mind renewal. Romans 12:2 says, do not be conformed by this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And that essentially just means that we've been trained all of our lives to think one way. You know, and there's influence all around us, you know,
Right.
and it's more worldly than it is spiritually. It's more worldly than it is godly. So you have to retrain your mind, you know, in order to think differently. That takes time. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of time. It's one of those situations where until you keep reading, until you keep doing things a certain way, habits won't change.
Right.
And until you break free of those old habits, they're going to remain the same.
Yep. And I've said that a couple podcasts ago, probably about a month or so, with my journey that I told about going about a year and a half now. Yeah, you have to retrain yourself, especially like habits that you've had for, gosh, over 20 plus years. You have to retrain your mind too. Number 3 is guard against worldly desires. So
First
First
John.
John 2:15 through 16, do not love things of this world as they are not of the Father.
Yeah.
So a big one that I can say is like not making items your God. So that can be money, that can be a house, that can be a car, or cars, or houses, if you have multiple. Money, making money your God too. Any materialistic thing can be your God. Purses for women. I am a purse person. But making that your God, you know, kind of just having that focus on that specific thing, and like your goal is always to get the newest car and the newest house, or those stuff is like, that's a really big thing of being that focused on a materialistic thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think with me, that's something that I struggled with for quite some time. Uh, I have owned almost any car that you can think of. I was a big car guy. I also was a huge shoe guy, big clothes guy. I always had to have matching shoes with my clothes, and I always had to have, a luxury vehicle, like a foreign vehicle. And over the last, really, it's been, I guess, since mom passed, so the last like two plus years or so, it's changed to where
Yeah.
now I'm a lot more practical. I don't own 30, 40 pairs of shoes that I can switch out my outfit with. I don't own a foreign vehicle. It's really just changed, and I've tried to live more humbly. And that's something that me prior to that, prior to my spiritual journey, but it's just not me. I was defined by the things that I had, and I
Yeah.
was really, really proud of those things. So
Right.
pride, took a lot of that away, and it's taken me to humble myself in order to do that.
Yeah.
Now, that's not me saying that I'm a saint at all. I still have a nice car. I really I do, but it's not foreign.
Yeah, it's not
I drive a
luxury.
Chevy Equinox, people, but
Yeah.
it's just one of those things that you learn over time that the stuff isn't as important.
Yeah, and there's a lot of distractions out there. There's a
Yeah,
lot of influencers on YouTube, on TikTok, saying like, you got to have these new pair of shoes. Like they just came out, brand new. Are they Kobe's? I don't know shoes like that, but the no new Kobe's or whatever,
yeah,
styles of shoes. And it's like people are out here to influence you to buy this stuff, because the more people that buy it, the more profit they get.
yeah.
So
Number 4, live by the Spirit. Galatians 5:16 says, "Walk by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh." Now, this is similar to what we were just saying, but it's got a little bit of a different tone to it. When we say that you should walk by the Spirit, it's things that are of God. So it's not enough just to humble yourself, but how can you help others?
right.
It's not just about humbling yourself and not being as like for me, not being as obsessed with cars and shoes and clothes. How do I bless others with shoes and clothes, and if I can someday, how do I bless somebody else with a car?
Right.
How do I do those things and not just think about myself? The way of the Spirit is to help others too. Jesus said that there were two commandments that were above others. First was love God with all your heart, all your might, all your soul. The second was like it, and it was to love your neighbor as yourself.
Mm,
So all the things that I would do for myself, like, buy a car, buy clothes, buy food, I should be willing to do that for my neighbor too. And that's hard, people. Like a complete and total stranger being able to do that for, and if they're not going to be grateful and they're not going to be appreciative, a lot of us would, me included, would cower at that. But it's still this spiritual journey that I'm on, and I'm trying to get there. But that's what we're called to do.
yeah. And then number 5 is prayer and thanksgiving. Philippians 4:6-7. Present your request to God with thanksgiving without being anxious. So basically, I take this as like surrendering, always surrendering to God, taking whatever you're anxious about and not being anxious about it and taking it to God. Not taking, things into your hands, but giving it to God, and not being full of anxiousness, anxiety, fearful, in regards to that, but taking it to God by praying and do giving thanks for everything. So just really surrendering it over to the Lord.
Yeah, just being thankful for what you have too. There's a lot of people
Right.
that don't have things that you have. Even if you have a little, there's some people that have nothing. So just being thankful, and then the prayer part's huge. That's
Right.
communication with God. You definitely want to be prayerful, and you want to be thankful.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, I think we've taken up enough of your time today. It's a little bit of a longer podcast episode today, but I think there was just a lot of points that we wanted to get out. So hopefully this helped you. Hopefully this encouraged you. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. And until next time, my name's Derek.
My name is Kayla, and we
We
are
are
the
the
Berries.
Berries.
Bye, guys.
Take care.